Day 223, Jeremiah 14, 15, 16, and 17. Have you ever gone through a season when it felt as though everything around you was falling apart? You pray, but the answer doesn't seem to come. You try to make sense of what is happening, but nothing seems to add up. You look at the people around you, and somehow, everyone seems to be carrying their own burden. And perhaps the most difficult question becomes, God, where are you in all of this? Today's session takes us into a season very much like that. There is drought in the land. People are thirsty. Crops are failing. The nation is struggling. Jeremiah cries out to God on behalf of the people, but the deeper problem is not simply the lack of rain. It is the condition of the human heart, and that is what makes these chapters so relevant to us today. Because sometimes, what looks like an external problem is actually revealing something deeper within us. First we read of the people who are suffering, and Jeremiah intercedes for them. Although our sins testify against us, do something, Lord, for the sake of your name. Jeremiah is not pretending that everything is fine. He acknowledges the failure of the people, but he still appeals to God's character. And perhaps there is something we can learn from that. When life becomes difficult, we don't always need to pretend that we have everything together. Sometimes faith sounds like, Lord, I know I have failed, I know things are not right, but I still need you. That is an honest prayer. But Jeremiah's generation had a deeper problem. They had allowed themselves to become comfortable with outward religion, while their hearts were moving away from God. And God repeatedly warns them about false confidence. Do not put your confidence in what cannot sustain you. We can do this today in so many ways. We put our confidence in our careers, our bank accounts, our relationships, our education, our reputation, our social media presence, our plans for the future, even our own ability to figure everything out. None of these things is necessarily bad, but when something created by God becomes the thing we trust, instead of God himself, it becomes dangerous. Cursed is the one who trusts in man, who draws strength from mere flesh. But the passage doesn't leave us there. It gives us this beautiful contrast, that blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. Notice the difference. The issue isn't whether we will trust something. We will. The question is, what are we trusting? Where do we go when we are afraid? Who do we depend on when our plans fail? What gives us a sense of security when circumstances change? Jeremiah says that the person who trusts in God is like a tree planted by water. Even when heat comes, its leaves remain green. Even when there is no rain, it continues to bear fruit. That doesn't mean the person never experiences difficult seasons. It means the difficult season doesn't have the final word. And perhaps that is exactly what some of us need to hear today. You may be in a dry season. A season where the prayers seem unanswered. A season where your efforts don't seem to be producing results. A season where you are wondering whether you made the right decision. But Jeremiah reminds us that being planted in God does not mean you will never experience drought. It means that drought does not have to destroy you. And then Jeremiah gives us another deeply challenging statement. The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? That verse forces us to look inward. We are often very good at identifying what is wrong with everybody else. We can see their mistakes, their attitudes, their decisions, their weaknesses. But Jeremiah asks us to examine our own hearts. Because our greatest battles are not always outside us. Sometimes they are within us. Our fears, our pride, our bitterness, our desire for control, our need for approval, our tendency to trust ourselves more than God. God is not merely interested in changing our circumstances. He wants to transform our hearts. My eyes are on all their ways. They are not hidden from me. God sees what people don't see. He sees the private struggle behind the public smile. He sees the tears nobody knows about. He sees the decision you are wrestling with. He sees the temptation you are trying to resist. He sees the disappointment you haven't been able to explain. Nothing about us is hidden from him. And yet, despite seeing everything, God continues to call his people back. That is grace. So perhaps the question for us today isn't simply, God, will you change my situation? Maybe the deeper question is, God, what are you trying to change in me through this situation? Perhaps this difficult season is teaching you dependence. Perhaps disappointment is teaching you surrender. Perhaps waiting is teaching you patience. Perhaps uncertainty is teaching you to trust God rather than your own plans. And perhaps the greatest invitation is simply this. Come back to God. Not when everything is perfect, Not when you have solved every problem. Not when you finally understand what He is doing. Come now. With your questions. With your fears. With your failures. With your uncertainty. Because the God who confronted Jeremiah's generation was also the God calling them back to Himself. Here is a simple prayer that can become our prayer today. Heal me, Lord, and I will be healed. Save me, and I will be saved. For you are the one I praise. Maybe that is where we need to end. Not with the promise that everything will immediately become easy, but with the confidence that God remains worthy of our trust even when life is difficult. So if you are walking through a dry season right now, remember the tree planted by the water. Keep your roots in God. Keep praying. Keep examining your heart. Keep trusting. And don't allow a difficult season to convince you that God has abandoned you. Sometimes the strongest faith is not the faith that says, I understand everything. It is the faith that says, I don't understand everything, but I still trust you. As we close, take a moment today to ask yourself, what am I really trusting? If your confidence has slowly shifted from God to people, possessions, achievements, or your own ability, perhaps today is an invitation to return. You don't have to have all the answers, you simply need to put your roots down again. Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in Him. May your heart find its security in God, your strength be renewed in Him, and may you continue to trust Him, even in the dry seasons. Until next time, remember, what surrounds you may change, but the God in whom you are rooted remains faithful.